I have to admit this one is a little bit different, and I also have to admit that this one didn't really keep my attention as much. So this movie I would probably have to give, and again, all opinions, opinions are different. This movie I would probably give about a 5, maybe 6 at most. So it's about that range, like 5, 5.5. Let's see. Robert Englund, of course, reprised his role as Freddy. I mean, he's Freddy in all the movies except for the remake. And then you have Lisa Wilcox, who reprised her role as Alice Johnson. She was a survivor from the 4th film. Danny Hassel as Dan Jordan. Joe Seeley as Mark Gray. Kelly Jo Minter as Yvonne. Erica Anderson as Greta Gibson. And Whit Hertford as Jacob Johnson. Beatrice Bopel, I think is her last name, is Amanda Kruger. Now, this one is different because when you watch the first film and then watch this one, it's almost like you're watching 2 different films. And I'm starting to kind of understand why people say the originals are the best, but I still also embrace the idea and opinion that the first movies are not always like the best ones simply because they're just the first ones. So I've talked about that in another video, and I'll talk about that some more in other videos. The 5th installment of the popular franchise focuses on Alice, a survivor of the 4th film, who believes Freddy Krueger has been eliminated for good. Now, of course, we always know that when it comes to horror films, especially slashers, when they say this person is gone for good, what does that mean? They are never gone for good, because as they always say in Scream, they keep coming back. They always come back. She optimistically hopes to start a life with fellow survivor Dan. The nightmares begin soon enough, though, and Alice learns she is pregnant. When her friends start dying, Alice suspects that Freddy is using the fetus within her as a weapon. Can she fight the demon while protecting her unborn child? I know, this is different. Now, the budget on this movie was $8 million. Box office, $22 million. Came out in '89, so I guess those numbers are okay for a horror film at that time. That's actually pretty normal for something like that, given the time. Now, as far as the reviews, as far as the scores on the movie, now, Common Sense Media has not done a review on this one, at least not yet. Sometimes it takes them a long time. Rotten Tomatoes gave the film 30. Internet Movie Database, 50. Metacritic, 54. Wow, Metacritic was nicer than Rotten Tomatoes on this one. And Google users has a wide range. It's 58 to 80%. Usually wide. Like, normally when I see percentages like that, I usually would see like 20 to 25% or 70 to 75 or even like 95 to 99. You know, usually it'd be 2 percentage numbers that are in close proximity with each other. I've never seen 58 to 80. That's kind of, I don't see that one too often. Now, let's see what some positive reviews had to say and see what some of the negative ones had to say. Okay, so number 1, as far as, so 1 star. Pathetic and pointless. The movie started so confusingly, we can't figure out which is reality and which is dream. In the first movie, Freddy used nightmares to attack people. In the second one, he tried to possess a victim's body. The third one, again, dream sequence. Fourth one, he used one person's dream to snatch another one. In the 5th one, he tears down barrier between reality and dream. How come he attacked people while they were wide awake? The visual effects are also disturbingly messy and crazy. I thought it is a horror thriller. I don't know why characters are talking and behaving like some sort of cartoons. Especially Yvonne's character is so irritating. She never listens to a word Alice says. Now Freddy invading the dreams of unborn children and manipulating the reality with it. How is that making any sense? It never makes single sense. Also, don't watch this. Okay. I can agree with most of that. This one was a little bit more cartoonish. I feel like the 3rd, 4th, and 5th films, especially the 4th and the 5th, it was almost like Freddy Krueger meets Star Wars type thing. There was some laser effects, and it's like this was not in the first film. You know, the sad part about it is, usually with these type of movies, the more they do, the more realistic they look as they go on. With this one, the original one, compared to these ones, actually looks the most realistic, even though that came out in 1984. So I don't know what was going on with that at the time. But, I mean, hey, if you're a hardcore, like, Freddy Krueger fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I mean, of course, this is worth a watch for you. And Again, this isn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but far from the best. I would not put... So I would say the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is still, like, as a whole, like, as a movie series, it's still in my top 10 as far as horror movie franchises. I would probably even say it's in the top 5. I would put it at about 4, with 3 being Friday the 13th, 2 being Halloween, and 1 being Scream. So, but if I were to break it down like individual movies, I don't think I can put this one in the top 10. I don't even know about top 15 or 20. That's debatable. For sure not the top 10. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't some positive reviews on it. I don't see any 4 and 5 stars, but I do see... Here's a 3-star. Dealing with the inception and birth of Freddy Krueger. Part 5 of this franchise had every opportunity to be the darkest episode in the franchise. And although it's a good movie, the truth is, with Freddy Krueger becoming ever more comedic, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise was becoming less about genuinely frightening the audience and more about entertaining them. Part 5 is a case in point, as Freddy uses the dreams of an unborn baby to wreak vengeance. Mainly because Freddy Krueger is no longer a figure to be frightened by. Part 5 is a fun watch. Unfortunately, it just isn't a scary one. It's a missed opportunity to tell the darkest tale yet. The birth of Freddy Krueger should be terrifying, not played for fun. That's fair. Now, I think that's a good breakdown of that. Another one says, this is another fair and acceptable sequel, but most of the plot line is way out of hand. Most of it is almost like watching a supernatural film, but most of the time it focuses on flashbacks when Freddy's mother was taken to an asylum, raped by a bunch of other people, and then gives birth to Freddy. The plot line kind of blew my mind by the time I watched it. Although the kills are creative, though, such as the comic book scene, the dinner scene, and the pool scene, but this film may leave lots of questions on what goes on in the film. Gonna give this 3 stars. Yeah, so, of course I know all the horror fans have already seen all the movies, but to those of you who are either, just getting into the horror genre in terms of, hey, I want to check some of this stuff out because I missed it over the years, I'm telling you, if you watch the first one, and then let's say you were to skip the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and just watch the 5th one, it seems like 2 completely separate. They don't even seem like they're in the same series. It just doesn't seem that way. So I think that other person is right. I mean, yeah, this one was a little bit more entertaining than frightening. The first one for sure was definitely the most frightening one. I would say the remake in this particular case was better than the 5th one and the 4th and the 3rd. The second one, that's debatable. I think the first movie gets a 10 for sure. The remake, I'd say, gets about a 9, 9.5. The second one gets like 8, 8.5. The only problem I had with the second movie was that it just started off kind of slow and boring. But then I would say by near the end of the 2nd act, beginning of the 3rd act, that's when it started to get more interesting. When he showed up to the house and the kids were having the house party and everything, and he was killing them one by one and whatnot, possessing the body. So far, the 1st, 2nd, and remake are my favorite ones out of this franchise, but I still have a few more to go. And once I get to them, I'll cover it on this show. Like and subscribe. I got plenty more coming.